is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. If he had a time machine, he once told me he would just go back and build a bigger clubhouse. Stu Horvath.
I've actually joked with, I don't remember who I joked with, but it was about vintage toys and stuff. And if I had a time machine, I would go to like 1984 and just to my local Toys R Us and just load back a truck up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. Like, I would go and I would go back far enough first to make sure I had like the right kind of currency, because there was that point pre the big giant heads on our dollar bills. Yeah. And I would just get I would get enough old currency and go back there and essentially like willingly put myself through college so I could drop out several times before finishing with an honorary degree in something, because I would have so much toy money I could afford to do that.
Yeah, man, time machines, time travel, so much potential there, right?
You would think. One of those things I've never been able to wrap my head around, though, is how you can make time travel work in an RPG. Because there's a very finite number of pages in a book, yet an infinite number of outcomes when you go and you mess with the time stream, right?
So this is actually a bigger conversation than we have time for tonight, I think. But I'll tell you why. There are very few time travel RPGs. The answer is, it's really hard to make a time travel RPG.
It's really hard to make a time travel movie and have it make sense.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at Avengers. Like,
yeah,
that movie, like, they have more money than God. They have all the creative talent that they need. They can put together their own Avengers of writers, and they still screwed up their time travel mechanics.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first mistake that they made was when they put together their time travel Avenger writers, they didn't get Bob Gale. Because that dude could make a time travel movie. Am I right, folks?
Yep. So, yeah, like, time travel's hard. There's just like a meta reason why a time travel RPG isn't going to work, I think. And it's that because time travel is theoretical in the real world, in the fictional space, we have to create all these rules for it, right? And like figure out how it works. So like you're already building a rule system. And then on top of it, you need to make a role-playing rule system. So like you're making rules for rules. That's hard, I think, and tedious. There's literally 5 role-playing games, time travel role-playing games that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm not counting like bolt-ons, like GURPS time travel. That doesn't count. That's just like hand wavy kind of stuff that lets you like jump through. And like there's a way to do it where like you could just jump through time. Like, oh yeah, we got a time machine. We're going back to 1954, Hambone. Yay, it's done. You don't have to bring the kind of like the full system nonsense that like a time travel role-playing game is going to bring to the table. You could just kind of plot device it away, right?
Right.
So yeah, man, time travel, not really the best thing to make a role-playing game out of, but people have done it. The first one, and that's the one we're talking about today, is Timeship.
Timeship.
By Yaquinto Publications. I believe it's 1983. Boy, yeah. So you have, the famous time machine that H.G. Wells came up with. You have the DeLorean, of course. I'm sure there's other time machines that are famous that I can't
Doctor Who's police box.
There you go. The TARDIS, of course. How could I forget the TARDIS? Doctor Who is one of the time traveling role-playing games. FASA has a licensed role-playing game that was not very good.
And lest we not forget Bill and Ted's phone booth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Multiple phone booths, which is funny because, most people don't know what a phone booth is anymore.
Well, you also have to think that like when Ed Solomon was writing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, it wasn't so easy for many people to have the access to Doctor Who and shows like that. Like, yes, it could be argued that it was being shown on PBS, but then certain part of the country doesn't have PBS. So like, it's almost as if, one day he's sitting in a cafe out in California. He's like, I have a great idea for a time machine. What if we do a phone booth? And at that point in the 80s, maybe he had not discovered Doctor Who yet. I don't know. I mean, I'm like being wildly speculative here, but pre-internet, like cable television, pre a lot of things, we talk about things like Snake Pipe Hollow and Keep on the Borderlands and different people creating in very like similar headspaces, but in different places. So I don't know. I just thought it was funny that like a major movie studio was all like, yeah, man, we'll just make it a phone booth. That's fine.
Yeah. And like, my exposure to Doctor Who is pretty limited. So like I think that you might be onto something. Like even the few episodes that I saw as a kid in the 80s were Tom Baker episodes, and he was long gone, as like we were like 3 doctors on by then.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't even think he was using the TARDIS for part of it, if I recall correctly, because I did not discover Doctor Who until Christopher Eccleston, because, it was that British show with the phone booth back when I'd first seen it on PBS, and it was very British, and I wasn't ready for anything that British at that point. But now, like, I love Doctor Who. I've gone to the Experience. I've gone to Cardiff to go visit Torchwood. I'm into it, man. But I really do recall a point where I think Tom Baker didn't even like set foot in the TARDIS for like half a season or something. I don't know. As many doctors ago. But go on, Stu.
Anyway, so we got phone booths, we've got DeLoreans. Timeship, despite the name, doesn't involve a ship. You time travel because you read a ritual on an ancient scroll.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm of two minds of this. I feel like it's sort of like a fake out, particularly because the game is called Timeship. I want a boat, man. But like at the same time, I'm kind of like, yeah, I like this idea. So I feel like we need to talk about the cover first. The cover art is pretty amazing. You'll see it in a couple weeks. It's going to be on the feed. I'm going to do a week of all the time travel games. It's a rough one. Anyway, the cover of this one is pretty awesome because like there's this border that goes around it, and it's like sort of trying to illustrate the progression of time through culture. So it starts with like cave paintings, it goes to ancient Egyptian, Greek stuff, and then it wraps around and it becomes the 20th century. The 20th century is represented by the Kodak logo.
What, really? Wait.
A pack of Camel cigarettes.
Huh?
And 7-Up and Miller Lite can.
So not even like Pepsi or Coke. They went with like 7-Up.
And Miller Lite. Like I love it because I like Miller Lite a lot. But I drink 2 beers. I drink Guinness when I'm feeling like special occasion, and Miller Lite when I'm not. And it's just like a light beer is the one that you're gonna put on the cover of your role-playing game. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you could see my face right now, Stu, there's the look of more questions than we have time to ask and answers that'll never be addressed. But go on.
So the next big innovation that Timeship puts on the table, there's no character creation, Hambo.
But it's an RPG.
Yes. You know who you play?
Who do you play?
You. It's you traveling through time. John Hambone McGuire and his time adventure.
But why do I want to play myself in an RPG? I want to play someone with abs. Like, I do want to be myself. That's what I roll up a character for.
I mean, yeah. There's something like super like WTF about it. It's so ballsy, Like, okay, we're just going to not do that thing. Like character creation is like I make characters for games that I'm never going to play. Like I just like making characters. It's part of the role-playing game experience. If nothing else, to get a taste of a game, you can always roll up a character. Timeship is like, nah, you're just you.
But I'm not good with knives and I can't dance. Like, why would I want to be myself? Like, I love me. I'm a big fan of yours truly here. It's taken a lot of years in therapy and a lot of work on myself to really genuinely like myself. And that being said, I still can't swing a sword, bro. So why would I do that to myself?
I mean, I guess once we get on the time adventure, you're going to be a coward. I don't know. We're going to have to get more therapy sessions, probably.
I mean, I'll die a hero, sure, but like, man, there's a lot of cardio involved with being a hero, and that's why I'll probably die quickly.
So it's funny that you bring that up because the system is like barely there, and that's kind of cool. I respond to that because this is 82. You don't have a lot of like rules light kind of systems. This one is super light. It's basically see through. I have a hard time kind of like understanding it because I feel like important pieces of it are missing. And that's probably because there's no character creation to sort of hang everything on. That's a good point of introduction. I think that's why most role-playing games have characters. So the time travel, the mechanics are basically about like managing the energy of time travel. And what that means is like you basically get like a set number of energy, like personal energy. So like I think it maxes out at 300 points. And so you can spend some of those points to bring stuff through time with you. So like a gun, maybe, or a first aid kit, right? Something like that. As long as like the time stream allows it, which is basically if the DM says okay.
And what is the DM called in a game like this? The Timemaster. The the timekeeper? Please tell me, is it the timekeeper?
It isn't the timekeeper. None of these games are the timekeeper, actually, and I'm kind of annoyed by that.
Well, crap, man. I mean, it's right there.
Now, it's a little bit of a copyright infringement case. It's the Time Lord.
Oh, my. So you went with the obvious thing that you could have gotten away with scot-free, and you went for copyright infringement.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, the 80s.
So once you're in your spot, you have to spend energy to kind of move and do stuff. And you have a certain amount of energy that's in reserve for combat. So you can get wounded without like having it, take off your health, which is also in this personal energy. You run out of personal energy, I guess you die, or you get knocked back out of the time stream. Either or. It's weird that they would make you play yourself and then like have you die.
Again, that's a weird flex, man, because, part of the reason why I rolled the character is because I won't die. It is an avatar of me doing stuff that I wouldn't normally do, like running.
Oh, Hambone. Listen,
man, I only run for but two reasons, and that is from the police and to the ice cream man. And other than that, like, I'm a
Jesus,
fast
man,
walker.
It's the fuzz.
At best, exactly.
Yeah, geez. And we're just barely scratching the surface here. And I got more. I have more.
I mean, like when you nix a character in a game, like that's half the rules right there. So I feel like we got time. Go on.
So the rest of the book is sort of dedicated to 3 scenarios, which is good because nothing else for Timeship ever came out as far as I know, which is kind of a bummer because out of the handful of time travel games, it is tied for first place, which I guess out of 5 is not that great, but and it's tied for first place largely on the merits of the fact that of the scenarios. The other one that it's tied with is Timemaster, which is made by Pacesetter Games, who are the people who made Chill. And it's the same system as Chill. And it's actually like a fun romp of a game that kind of like nails the tone in a way that Chill doesn't. And like right out the gate. And I really love Timemaster for that. But it's definitely not nearly as weird. Like Timemaster is sort of like, remember those choose your own adventures where it's just like you travel time. What was it? It was like Timescape or Time. They were like the educational ones where you go back in time and it's like you fight in the Civil War, or you meet the Knights Templars. That's what Timemaster feels like to me a little bit. Whereas this is just weird because the first adventure is go to the end of time and solve a murder.
All right, that's kind of fun. I like that. I love a detective story.
Strong, kind of like weird Doctor Who vibes, I think. Partly because of the cast of characters includes Dracula, a guy in a trench coat, Little Red Riding Hood, the butler Jeeves, and a mafia don.
And you lost me. Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, like I can see Tennant kind of running around those characters and like giving them the bug eyes and trying to figure out who committed the murder.
I guess that makes sense. Not all
like
at once.
A ship in space.
But maybe feel like I had to pick 2, leave a few. But see,
would you get rid of guy in trench coat? Like that's literally he looks suspicious because he's wearing a trench coat. That's basically his character.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I see a dude in a trench coat. I'm thinking he's not wearing anything above the calves. So baseline, we're not inviting him to the party. Dracula, definitely. Little Red Riding Hood could go either way. Mafia Don, very nondescript. Like I feel like if they're already dealing with some copyright stuff with the Time Lord stuff. Why don't you just say it was the Godfather or Al Capone? There you go. Like,
there you go.
there are moves you could have made, but you didn't, and that's okay. That being said, I feel like time travel works in essence if you're going forward in time as a story, because there's nothing that you're going to potentially screw up in the past that's going to cause divergent timelines or whatever else, or like your picture to disappear. And then you got to play guitar real good at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and whatnot or whatever. But like future movement, I feel like is a safer bet. Wouldn't you say for time travel?
Generally, the only downside is that we don't know what it's like out there.
Wildly speculative, I would say. I mean, the jetpack future that we were promised by now in the year of whatever day you subscribe to in 2021, we haven't quite really gotten yet. I mean, their idea of a hoverboard is kind of crap. The jetpack is kind of a water pack. We got no flying cars. And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, these self-driving cars, that sounds like a murder machine, really, is what it sounds like.
Amen, brother. Amen. So what else do you got going on with these scenarios?
So after solving the murder at the end of time, which I think is I like that one. That one makes me feel good. It's weird. It's quirky. It's not bound by my expectations of historical past. And then you go into the historical past, because of course you do. But their choice of historical past. So like all of this is sort of like built around like a very easy to use system, right? Which to me, with role-playing games, it always seems to be like you want that to appeal to kids, right?
Right.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like we need simple role-playing games for everybody, and that's the thing. But like I always just kind of translate that to like making it easier for younger folks to pick it up. The second adventure is going to Gomorrah right before God blows it up. And it's not God either. There's like a bomb. It's weird. And trying to rescue as many slaves as possible. And it is super raunchy. Like super raunchy. The illustration has nudity in it. And I'm just like, whoa. Why?
You mean dingles and dangles, or is it just like lady nudity as most RPGs are?
The naked dudes are kind of like got their hands where they need to keep them, but like, yeah, it's like a slave market, and it's just like, oh, this is just gross. Like, I don't want to. That's not what I'm role playing for, Like,
see, a minute ago, you actually had a great thought that you stumbled across when you talked about role-playing being for kids. And I think to myself in that moment, you know what? Maybe that makes a lot more sense when you think about, hey, there's no characters that you have to make up. The character is you. And in a lot of ways, like, kid empowerment kind of thing, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I could kind of get behind that concept up until you said you go back to Gomorrah. Holy crap. I
mean, at least they didn't like make it super obvious and make it Sodom. It was like they at least went to the weird one, Gomorrah.
Yeah, I guess there was no vacancy in Sodom that night.
Yeah. And to your point, yeah, like all those adventure game books, it's like, oh, the hero is you. And it's like some kid in like jeans fighting a wizard, on the cover. Like that's the idea. It's you embody the character because the character is basically just a shell for you. Gomorrah, just like, yeah, it hits the wrong note, the absolute wrongest note. But really, that's just the setup for the coup de grace, the third. I mean, it's a little bit obvious, but
what do you go back and kill Hitler?
Of course, yes.
Oh,
yes,
really?
That's the yeah.
I mean, if you get a time travel game, it makes complete sense, right?
Of the 5 that I have, it's the only one that mentions Hitler that I know of.
Well, I mean, for me, I will say I would be glad to go back in time and kill Hitler. Like, you have my willingness. So in this instance where they're like, John Hambone McGuire, you get to go back in time and kill Hitler because the character is you. And I'm like, I think I could do this because bunker technically means down. So if I'm going down the stairs, that's easier than me having to run up. So I could probably get through this encounter. Maybe.
So yeah, the cool part I think about it is it's not like you're trying to assassinate him when he's a painter. You're doing it when he's like in the bunker. So it's like the end of the war, the siege of Berlin. You're going there to make sure that he doesn't start anything else new up.
Or take up painting again.
Yeah, that too. He can't escape to South America. Like you're there to prevent that, which I think is kind of cool. It is not the setup that I would have done, and I appreciate that. And yeah, like for all the reasons you say, like I would totally play that over and over and over again and cackle maniacally as we murder Hitler. Like It's just such an easy, right over the plate fastball for me to knock out of the park every time, like, oh, hey, what are we going to do tonight? Oh, we're going to play this stupid time travel game. Oh man, are we going to kill Hitler again? I said, it,
Yeah.
every day.
But I think half the fun would be coming up with new and inventive ways to do it.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Right. It becomes like this time we just bring in a vat of gravy. We got to figure out how to, like, we're going to drown him in gravy this time. It's like, what? You're like,
oh my God. The inventive ways to spend your energy points. It's just like, well, how many energy points would I need to be able to go back in time, kill Hitler with an entire Thanksgiving supply of gravy for the entire city of Clifton and still be able to make it back to the future?
What I'm thinking of is that Looney Tunes cartoon where like the cat lords over the mice,
yeah.
and he's just constantly like, get me food, don't forget the gravy. And then like they force feed him at the end and they're like, we didn't forget the gravy. And he's like, no. And then you hear him explode.
Yeah.
That's what I was going for, ladies and gentlemen. And that's it. That's the end. We just killed Hitler with gravy. And that's Timeship. Holy crap, right?
I mean, how do you top that? Like
We're done. That was the finale. Vintage RPG is over.
Yeah, right. How do you get back to Faerun after you've killed Der Fuhrer? So this game, I imagine, did not have a long run as a game because, as we know, that Pace Setter had moved on to other things.
Yeah, no, Yaquinto, Pace Setter was the other one. Yeah, this was one and done, a complete game in the box, never to be revisited again.
Well, there you go. Studio, any final thoughts on Timeship?
No, not a one. I'm all out.
Well, this was a amazing episode of the Vintage RPG podcast. Stu, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. In the month of May, I am posting every day is a new game. A new game every day. It's crazy. Most of them are total dead ends like this one. But I have a week on time travel games. I have a week on tie-in games. I have a week on explicitly games that went nowhere. And then I have some random fun stuff. And then all the reprints are also going to be single game rule books. So it's 31 days of crazy.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. You can find me on the Twitter and on Instagram at John McGuire RPG. I tweet about board games. I tweet about cute animals. I tweet about Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs. Occasionally, I leave the house and I'll take some photos of that too. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, think about becoming one of our patrons over on patreon.com/vintagerpg. We've got early release episodes. We've got a behind the scenes look at Stu's book and my RPGs. We've also got a killer Discord community that we'd love for you to be a part of. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.